Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be going over how you can create a property details screen. The screen is going to look like this with the images up at the top and all of the details about the property down beneath those images. So without further ado, let's get started in building this screen out. So to get started, let's head to our properties types file and let's change this and add a couple fields to it. The first field is going to be called about, and it's going to be a string. The next will be phone number, which is going to be a string. Website, which will be a string. Dogs allowed, which will be a boolean. Dog limit. Dog details. Dog neutered. Dog declawed. Dog interview, which will be optional. Cats allowed. Cat details. Cat limit. Cat neutered. Cat declawed, stars, which will be a number, reviews, which will be of a review type, which we'll create in a minute, cat interview, features, and apartments, which we'll create right now. And I'm going to move cat interview up. Alright, so let's create these new types of review and apartment. And we'll do that in our types folder here. So we'll say apartment.ts and we will export this. It is going to have the fields of ID, bathrooms, bedrooms, images, property ID, rent, square feet, unit, created at, updated at, and deleted at. And now let's create review. And we will export this as well, and it's going to have created at, deleted at, ID, updated at, user ID, property ID, title, body, and stars. So let's save those and then go back to your property file and import review and apartments. Alright, so let's import those here. And now let's create the property details screen. So go into your screens folder here and create a new file called PropertyDetailsScreen.tsx. Property details screen. And to start off, we'll just render some text in a screen component. And we are going to be importing screen from our local components. And let's import text from UIKitten. And in the screen, we're going to be accessing the root prop, which comes from React Navigation. So let's destructure here and get that. So root, and then we'll say route be an object with params. And then what we want to pass in is going to be a property ID. So property ID, which is going to be a number. And while we're here, let's import properties from our properties file. Now, in the future, this is going to be the database, but this will work for now. And then we'll get the index of said property ID. So index equals properties dot find index I such that i.id is equal to root.params.property ID. And we need to return the screen here. That's why it was giving us that error. And then we'll say const property equals properties with that index. Okay, cool. Now let's just render out the property name. So property dot name. So with this screen created, let's go to our index file and let's add it to this modal group. So we'll create a stack.screen. The name is going to be property details. The component is going to be property details screen, and the options are going to equal an object saying header shown is false. And now we just need to add this property details to our types file. So let's go there, types.tsx, and within this root stack param list, let's add that. And it's going to be taking in that property ID, which is going to be a number. Okay, cool. So now let's go to our card component and make sure that it can handle an onPress event, because whenever we actually click on a card, that's when we want to get to this screen. So I'm going to navigate there, and there is no onPress event yet, so we need to add one. So let's create another prop here called onPress, and then here we'll say that it is going to be optional, and it's going to be a void function. And we are going to change this view to be a pressable component. So we'll get rid of this here and import pressable instead. Then I'm just going to change this to say pressable with onPress being equal to our passed in onPress. So with this as a pressable component now, it will actually only work if we press on the card information. So let's handle whenever the image carousel is pressed by creating an onPress event for the image carousel. So we'll say onImage press, and we'll pass in onPress here, and then we need to create this prop within this component. So let's add that here. And that's going to be an optional void function, just like the one before. And next, what we need to do is just wrap our image here in a pressable component, and then pass in that onPress event. So onPress is going to be onImagePress. And now let's go and build out the screen. Well, first we need to actually handle those onPress events and go to every instance where a card is being shown, and then just state that we need to navigate to our property details screen. So let's go and do that. And I'm going to do Control-Shift-F and search for card. And we will go to our map component, because that's where some are. And here where we're rendering this card component, let's say onPress is equal to a function where we navigate to property details, and we pass in a property ID. And the property ID is going to be equal to properties sub active index dot ID. Now we save that, and it should work for the map. Now let's go to the other instances of card. So that's saved screen is where we are also rendering a card. So let's handle an onPress event here. And here we'll say navigation, or actually we might have to import use navigation here. So let's do that. and we'll say navigation.navigate to property details, and we need to pass in that property ID again. And here the property is going to be called item, so we'll just pass in item.id. And it's also on the search screen where we're rendering cards. So it's going to be the same thing. So I'm just going to copy what I did here and paste it in here. And we're going to need to import use navigation as well. And then I'm going to go back and copy this. And paste it up here. Now I'm going to go to save screen and test this out. So we will set liked properties equal to properties. And I'm going to navigate there in app. And let's click on the first one. So it's taking me to the property details screen, which is what we want. Now let's test it out on the map. Go to the map here, and there are some properties in Miami. So let's just click on one of these and then click on the map, and it takes us there as well. I've been clicking on the image, so let's click on the card itself, and that works as well. Alright, so now we can navigate to the property details screen, but this doesn't look very good. So we actually need to start building out this screen. So let's get started on that. So let's navigate back to our property details screen, and let's just get rid of the rest of these. Let's import style sheet from React Native. And we'll create our styles here. And we'll also import flat list. We'll get rid of this text here. I don't think we're going to need this per se. And we'll render out our flat list here. The data is going to be an array with one item, which is property. For key extractor, we need to specify that we want the item ID. So we'll say item, then item.id.toString. And for render item, let's render out what we want. So we need to get the item, and then let's render out some fragments here. And import view from React Native. And if the item has images, then we would like to render out a image carousel for those images. So let's do that here. So here we'll say item.images, question mark, then we need an image carousel, else null. And for here we need to specify the images, and those images are going to be item.images. So this is what we get. Not looking the best, so let's change up some of the styles, and we're gonna need to change up some of the props for our image carousel. So instead of rendering these chevrons, which take you right and left, we'd just rather render out nothing for those, and we'd like to have the images be set to where they take up the full width of the screen instead of this like 95%. And also we'd like to show the current index, which like where we are in the total number of images. So we are going to be doing all of that through the props. So let's go back to image carousel here, and let's specify a few more props. So the next one is going to be chevron shown, and that's going to be an optional Boolean. And then we'll have index shown, which will be an optional Boolean. And lastly, we'll have image style, which will be an optional image style. And we can just import that from React Native. Alright, so with those now included, let's go down into the body, and specifically our return statement here. And down here where we're rendering the chevrons, let's wrap these in brackets and specify chevrons shown, and then we will actually display these, and we actually need to wrap these in fragments. Now we just need to go back to our cards and specify, or rather our card, and specify that we want chevron shown to be true. Okay, now if the index is shown, then we'd like to render out a view with some text in it, and that text is going to have its own little style, and we'd like to render out the active index plus 1 out of all of the images, or the length of the photos. So let's import what we need to there. Let's import view, and let's create some styles here. Do not have text. Okay, let's import text from UI Kitten as well. And here for these styles of index and index text, index is going to have a position of absolute, top 20, left 15. This background color, padding vertical of 3, padding horizontal of 10, and border radius 30, and the index text will have a color which is white. So now let's go back to property details screen and specify we want index shown. And there you can see it popped up. Now we just need to specify what to do with the image style. And pretty much here, where we're passing in styles.image, we can wrap this in an array and just say image style at the end. And we need to create a new style on our property details screen for images. So down in our styles here, let's create a new property. It's going to be called image. The width is going to be the width of the window. The height is going to be 250, border top right radius is going to be 0, and border top left radius will be 0. And let's import dimensions from React Native. So now let's add that to our image carousel. We'll say image style is equal to styles.image. And there we go. It's looking a lot better. And we can scroll through left and right through all of the images, and it's showing the active index of the image, of the current image. So that's looking good. Now underneath of this, we need to render a view, and we'll create a style for this. We'll call it content container. And all the content is going to have a margin horizontal of 10. So we'll say style equals styles.contentContainer. So within the screen, we're going to have a bunch of different sections. So I'm going to create a new folder within my components folder here, and I'm going to call it property details sections. And the first section that we're going to create will be called property header section. So let's just export a const here called property header section. And for this, we are going to be taking in a property. And that's going to be coming from our types. Now within this component, let's import useState, share, view, style sheet, and touchable opacity from React Native, text from UIKitten, material community icons, and material icons from Expo Vector icons. And we'll also import theme and row. Now within this, we'll create a new state for the heart icon name, and it will either be heart or heart outline. And we'll create a function to handle whenever that heart is pressed. And then we'll create a function called share item, which will share the current item on screen. And all you pretty much need to do is call the share method from our imported share, which gets imported from React Native. And then you just pass in a message for that. So I said, check out this sweet apartment. And I wrapped it in a try catch block. Now beneath that, let's return a fragment. And within this fragment, let's create a text component rendering out the property name. And let's create our styles down below. We'll have default margin vertical, have a margin vertical of 10. And I'm going to go into my property details screen and add this right here. So we'll say property header section, passing in the current property. And that will actually allow me to see what I'm creating. And now let's go back to the property header section. Underneath of this, we want to render out a row. And we would like to render a view within this. Then here, let's render out the property street. And then we'll render out the property city, the property state, and property zip. First, we need to create a function called getStateAbbreviations. I'm going to do that in my utils folder. So it's called getStateAbbreviation.ts. So for this function, we need to create a new file which is just going to be a hash map or an object of all the states and their abbreviations. So let's create a new folder here called constants. And within this, we'll have US states.ts. And I'm just going to export this object, which contains all of the state names and their abbreviations. Now back here in getStateAbbreviation, I'm just going to import those states. And then I'm going to create a function which takes in a state and gets the state abbreviation using these pass-in states. And if that exists, then I'm going to return it. Otherwise, I'll just return the full name of the state. So we'll go back here and import this. And let's save that, see how it looks. Okay. Now beneath this view, let's render another row. In this, we are going to render out the different icons. So the first one is going to be a share icon. It's going to come from material icons, and we're going to have the onPress event await the share item function, which we created here. The name is iOS share, the size is 30, and we're going to give it a color of our primary color. And next to that, we will have a material community icon. The onPress will be our handle heart press function. The name is the heart icon name, size is 30, and the color is our primary color. So let's save that as well. And now we just need to add some styles So we're going to create a style for the outer row called container row. So let's add that here. And then here for this bottom row, we'll create a style called icon row, and we'll give it a padding right of 5. And then now we need to create a share icon property. And we'll give that a margin right of 20 and margin top of -4. And let's test this out. So we'll press on the share icon. And here you'll see that we can share that message. And we can click on the heart icon. And in the future, whenever we press on this, we can make some calls to the server. With that created, let's go back to our property details screen and import divider from UIKitten. I'm going to move this down. And underneath our property header section, we'll render a divider. And we're going to give this divider some styles, which will be a background color of our color-gray from our theme file. We're going to import that. And then a margin top of 10. So that was creating the property header section. That took about 25 minutes. So I'm just going to cut the video here and give each subsequent section its own video. So stay tuned for those. Those will be coming out very soon. But other than that, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.